Midway USA has an extensive selection of bullets, providing top-notch performance and accuracy for the cartridge you plan on reloading. If you plan to hunt, shoot competitively, plink at the range, or even load up some self-defense rounds, Midway USA has the popular brands, calibers, diameters, and grain weights of bullets you are searching for. First-time reloaders, bulk bullet buyers, and seasoned specialty shooters begin their search for bullets at Midway USA. For just about everything for reloading, shop MidwayUSA.com.
At Midway USA, we put customers first. The Nitro Express shipping system is icing on the cake. It was a big investment of time and money to take super fast, low-cost shipping to a whole new level. The Nitro Express helps ensure same-day shipping and low shipping costs. We hope you enjoy the Nitro Express. We built it just for you. For just about everything for the outdoors, go to MidwayUSA.com.
I'm Larry Potterfield with Midway USA. Thanks for your business.
You just be sitting up there jacked with Pepsi.
I'm there for the pack out. You just got to pack me in.
Committed to the bow early on. Like, I love getting close and putting up.
You cover a range of stuff on here too, right? Like,
we call this the THP World Headquarters.
You know, my grandpa Roy Weatherby.
I came into like that golden little pocket where there was like 4 or 5 different bowls. Just
You're Canadian? We're doing a Canadian podcast.
My name's Douglas Bode.
I'm Robbie Denning.
Roy Candy.
Well, Kevin. Your show, so I'll leave it up to you.
Yeah. Well, you've been busy building bows and.
Yeah, I've been super busy. I fucking been fighting, like just being sick all the time. There's not enough sleep, not enough hours in a day. Trying to get this. We're at electrical stage for my reno that I've talked lots about on this show, and just trying to get everything wrapped up for the plumbing, so I can get the plumbing inspection done and then start electrical. I didn't really want to have 2 things going at once. So just long days there till like 10, 11 o'clock at night, and then get up at 4 and train and then go to work, and it's cold. You know what it's like.
Oh, yeah. I know exactly what that's like. Trying to fit in shooting and lifting weights and work, and I can't even imagine renos. What's the layout of your shop going to be like? Home gym, bow shop, everything, eh?
Yeah, so on the main floor, there's going to be a gym area, and then you're going to walk into an office, and that's where the new podcast studio is going to be. And then the garage is going to be set up for just bow tuning stuff, bow builds, bow tuning, all that stuff. So I know I told you this, and I'm sure I talked about it before, but it was a nightmare getting permission to build my shop 6 inches bigger. And I'm so glad I did now. Like, I had to get a variance. I had to do a site survey and all that stuff, right? Had to have crew out here. And it was a big ordeal. And there was a lot of times where I was like, oh man, this is like, it's not going to be worth it. It's not going to be worth it for, 6 inches. It's just not going to be worth it. But I have a legit 18-meter range indoors now. And I tell you, like, it's all lit up. I get to shoot. The kids get to shoot. And I'm so happy now that it's already, like, the work's done. And it's legit. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I bet. I've been seeing some of the scores that Wyatt's been putting up. That's getting serious.
He shot a 300 today. So.
Oh, yeah.
Today was his first 300. So.
That's amazing.
Yeah, he was jacked with that. So I was pretty proud of him. It was pretty proud dad moment there. Shoot his first 300. And I told him, I was like, dude, your first 300 is it's always the hardest.
How's his consistency been? He's just been gradually, consistently getting better?
Yeah, and it's just little things. Do you know what I mean? So we really tuned his bow up really good. We changed his arrows. So, when you have kids and they want to shoot, there's only so much tuning. Like, all that stuff really doesn't matter, in my opinion, right? It's the shooting, it's the consistency. It's like, hey, let's focus on your form. Let's not worry about, if you're shooting, like, if you're, let's not worry about bear shaft tuning. Yeah. Let's not worry about all this other stuff like stabilizer weight. Let's not worry about torque tuning. Let's not worry about your arrow length. Arrow length's tough too with the kids because I mean, like, you go spend $400 on a set of arrows, vanes, and tips. You know what I mean? Excuse me. And then he grows, right? Like he grew
you definitely
2
don't
inches.
want it too short.
Yeah. So he grew 2 inches in like 6 months, and like we lengthened his draw length like 1.5 inches. So I always kept his arrows long, and I was like, you know what? This doesn't matter. And he was shooting like around 293 consistently. Like 293 was like his score, right? And then I was like, okay, Wyatt, I think we need to look at your bow now. So we put it in there. We started playing with cam timing. You know, how do you like? We always had his cams hitting at the exact same time. So I said, well, let's try your top cam hitting a little bit before and see if you like it. And he liked it, right? He felt he could pull harder into the back wall. So then we started messing around with some bear shaft tuning. And we got his, you know, we did the usual bear shaft tuning. We put, actually, let me back up. Before we did all this, we cut his arrows down and we changed his point weight. So we went to a shorter arrow and a lighter point because he's shooting 480 spine arrows, 23s, and he was running 150 up front. And the reason he was running 150 up front is because just his poundage that he was shooting, his arrows were actually overspined at the time for the poundage he was shooting. So I put a heavier front end on there to weaken the arrow. So we cut his arrows down. So right now they're at the end of his riser. He shoots a shoot through riser from PSE. And so his arrows are at the very tip of his riser. So we did that first, and then we went through everything else. We did his paper tuning. We did some bear shaft tuning. So we cut the vanes off one of his arrows, wrapped tape on there. Little pro tip for when you're bear shaft tuning for the listeners. When you're wrapping tape, the reason you wrap tape where the vanes were is so you have equal arrow weight and you're matching the spine, because the spine is going to change if you don't put the proper weight on the end of the arrow again. So when you're cutting the tape to do that, don't bite it and don't rip it with your teeth. It will drive you loony. I swear to God. So you got to cut it with your knife. So anyway, we did that. We got his bow like just completely dialed. We did some group tuning outside. And then the next day he went to shoot, he shot a 297. So 5 points better instantly just from his bow.
Oh yeah.
And then he was having he's shooting so good. Like he went back to a controlled release. So he's shooting the thumb button. And I can't break down his shot at all. You know what I mean? Like everything's good. He's pulling through the shot really nice, and like everything is just like dialed. So we played with stabilizers a little bit. We added weight to them. We took some weight back off, and we found a weight that he liked. So his pin was just bobbing slightly above the line. So that's where we got it, and that's where he was comfortable with, and that's what he liked. And then he was so close. And then what we did was we moved his sight in closer to his riser, and then instantly shot 300.
So how does that, like, I know, like, this is actually kind of a perfect segue into, there's a couple listeners that were asking, you know, like, it's off season, guys are picking up new bows, they're revisiting kind of deficiencies in their shot process and their how they're setting up their bow. As far as like for like hunting situation, how you're setting up your hunting bow, like pretty much, like, I know it's target, it's a little bit different, but you know, would you do that same like your cam timing for your hunting bow, or like your knock high, or what have you found?
Yeah, like I've always been a fan of having my knock a little higher than so, you know, a lot of guys say you should run your arrow right through the middle of your burger hole. A lot of guys say the bottom of the arrow should be through the middle of the burger hole. For me, I like the bottom of my arrow at the top of the burger hole. That allows my knock points to be a little higher, so I'm pulling on the bow a little higher, forcing the front of the bow to actually raise up a little bit. Now I run a really long stabilizer, right? I run a 15-inch stabilizer, and then by the time you put that quick connect on there and that little vibration dampener, I'm closer to 17-inch stabilizer bar. So what that does is I like to, when I'm setting up a bow, I'll have my pin slightly, I know the listeners can't see this, but I'm just going to explain it. So basically, if you took a target, flipped the target over, drew a line, horizontal line on a target, and you had your bow and you drew back. Now, this is without your stabilizers on. It's one of the first things I do. I draw back and I just see how my pin float is at that line. What I want is the pin floating above that line, up and down. Now, it does do a little bit of like a figure eight movement, but it goes above the line. And then when I put my stabilizer weights on, my stabilizer, it pulls that down. So now that figure eight is right on the line and it's always in the target where I want to hit. So if it's a paper face, it's always staying in the 10 ring. And that's what I do. I've always been a big fan of having my top cam hit a little bit ahead of my bottom cam. I've always liked that. Some guys don't, and I don't think there's a difference either way. I think depending on what type of tear you're getting, because if you're getting a higher low tear, cam timing is a part of that, along with knock pinch. I just got new strings made for my bow this year, and I'm running this really fluorescent yellow string, and I used a .014 serving on there, and I had too much pinch, so I had to put a .07 serving on there, and it was just enough. And you should have seen, dude, you should have seen that tear I had. I had like a 2-inch tear to the left. All I did was put new center serving on my bow, bullet hole. That was it.
So how do you check your bow for the listeners for proper knock fit?
Well, when you click your knock on there, now if it moves up and down, like slides up and down freely, that's fine. Like if you click your knock on and it just wants to fall down to your knock set, that's fine, right? Because when you draw your bow back, you're actually going to pinch that angle a little bit, and you're going to get, one thing what I like to do is when I'm tying my knock points on, now I tie top and bottom knock points, I'll get a knock that's bigger than the knock I'm using. I like those X knocks that Easton makes.
Yep.
So I'll grab like a gold tip knock or the AAE knocks, and they're probably about just under 1/8 of an inch bigger than the X knocks. And what I'll do is I'll put that knock on there and I'll put my knock points tight to that knock. And then when I pull that knock off and I put the X knock on there, it has just the perfect amount of play that I like. So when you put your knock point on there on your bow and you spin it, your D loop shouldn't move. If it does, your knock's too tight. So it's important, and it's like knock pinch is a real thing. It can really affect your accuracy. Definitely.
What will it do to the serving if it's like over time, it'll just wear it down and flatten it?
Yeah, it'll flatten it. So it'll actually turn to a rectangle. It's funny. So like if it's too tight and you keep pushing it on there, you do that for a while and then try to get it on the other way. And you can't because it's actually squared it so it's a rectangle. And you get wear on your serving, right? And that's no good. But the biggest thing is if you're into shooting at paper, and maybe you're not, maybe it's fine, right? And at the end of the day, is this all going to replace just shooting your bow? No, absolutely not, right? I shot my bow for years. I didn't even know all this stuff, right? Didn't matter.
What about guys switching? The reason why I'm asking this, because, I've kind of switched to where if I'm going to run lighted knocks, I just have practice ones and I just run them 24/7. Like that's what my arrows are. But what are you finding for the guys who are switching back and forth? Is there going to be issues between fitment? Because I found that there was. Yeah.
Especially if you run like those nocturnals.
Yeah,
they're a lot fatter. Yeah, definitely. And it's it can cause a lot of grief and agony just with that knock pinch. So, I mean, and when people think of knock pinch, I think a lot of people think like their D loop pinching on the top and bottom of their knock. But no, it's the serving. So if you're getting custom strings made or new strings, or you're buying new strings, and the person or the manufacturing company or the bowstring company is not asking you what type of knock you're using, you might want to look at getting somebody else to make your strings.
Yeah,
it's funny. Jordan Harrop, he started making strings. He's got a new company called Bowstring Company. Great name.
Yeah.
And we were talking about that, and he's like, "Yeah, that's mandatory for me. I need to know your knocks because I need to know what kind of serving you're putting, what kind of serving I'm putting on there. Because if you want a fluorescent orange string, that string is going to be thicker than a neutral color or like a black, because all the ink they have to put in that string to make it that fancy color you like. And hey, I like the flow yellow, so I'm no one to talk, but
yeah,
that's why I need the smaller serving."
What kind of material is he using? 99.
So he was talking about using this new. So they BCY, they got a new 452 extra. Supposed to be really good stuff. So apparently it solved all the issues that 452X had.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of guys were going to the 99. That's why I shot BCY 99. I mean, we've talked about it on this show lots, right?
Yeah.
That's why I've shot it for years. It's just because I hated all the fraying and fuzz that the 452X, and then you get peep twist and all that stuff. Just didn't like it, but apparently they solved all those issues now with that 452 extra.
It's probably
so
just
he's using
blend.
452 extra. So yeah,
crazy. Another thing I wanted to ask was, like, when you're setting up a bow for like stabilizers and sidebars, like what kind of bias are you looking at, or like what are you looking for? Like, are you typically setting up your bow obviously like quiver full or however you're going to be hunting with? Like how do you adjust or determine that ratio? Because I know lots of guys will talk about different ratios or numbers, like for length and for weights. What's kind of the sweet spot?
For me, I've always, once I went to a 15-inch bar, I couldn't go back. I just loved it. Now the back bar.
What's the benefit of the 15 that you see versus like a 10 or a 12?
Well, I don't know. Like the 12 is good too. I mean, the 12 is good, but I always found I was putting too much weight on a 12 for myself, because I like running my D loop a little higher to pull the bow down to center it on at the target. I like a 15-inch, and also, like, man, when I'm hiking up a side hill or something, I'm using my 15-inch bar as like a walking stick. So. And then I was always running a 6-inch bar off the back with like 8-9 ounces of weight. And I just went to a 10-inch bar on the back with less weight. And I love it. Absolutely love it. So, yeah, that's
your new go-to now?
Yeah, that's my new go-to. Less weight on the back bar, have it further out from the bow so it's not catching my hip. Now, I haven't hunted with it yet, so we'll see. Because that was always a big thing for me, is having that back bar catch on everything. So
how can you tell if it's not fitting just right? Is this strictly aim, or like is there a test that you do? Like when you pull up your shot, just how it's naturally going to aim and naturally be level?
Yeah, well, like if you're done your bow setup, now if you're doing your hunting bow, I'll put my quiver on my bow loaded with arrows. Then I'll take one arrow off and I'll go to the target. I'll draw back and I'll see where the bubble's at. Now, if the bubble's in the middle, perfect. If it's leaning one way, I'll adjust my back bar by either moving it out or moving it in to get that canter just right, the left or right lean, the left or right list of the bow. Now, the height of the back bar, I sometimes play with if I'm getting a bad tear and I don't know why. Like I've gone through everything, everything's good. Like high and low tears are really funny because you can't shim your cams, or you can move your rest a little bit up and down, but that's not really going to solve the problem. You either have something else going on with your bow or your shot. And you'd be surprised just by adjusting a back bar how much it can fix a tear.
Do you think it's just how it's rebounding after the shot? Just how it's responding as you're releasing the arrow?
Yeah, I think a lot of it too is how you're responding to your bow, like how you're shooting the bow. Because it doesn't take much to have a bad tear, like in your shot form. So, I mean, a little bit of too much heel pressure on your hand, not enough heel pressure. And a lot of that a lot of that causes, if you're playing with back bar weight, it's going to mess up your grip handle a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
like, do you like a left or a right bias, or do you like the bow perfectly level? So it's because I've heard a lot of people, even I think it was Douglas. I was listening to another podcast he had. This was years ago, where he was saying he liked like a left bias, so that he's naturally putting a little bit of muscle into it to balance it out instead of it teetering perfectly leveled. That's what I was wondering.
yeah, no, and for me, man, I like it perfectly level. It's just one less thing I got to think about. But I mean, when you're on a side hill or you're shooting downhill or anything like that, man, like perfectly honest with you, if you got an elk coming in screaming at you, the last thing you're looking at is your fucking bubble. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Oh yeah. I'm not. Yeah.
you're not worried about
Yeah.
that, man.
Yeah.
You just got to trust. But that's why it's important to put the reps in, because
Yeah.
if you do something enough times, you're naturally just going to do it.
Yeah.
Like you grab your bow, you pick it up, it's going to be square.
Yeah. You just find it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, it's funny, all these little things that you don't even think about. You take it for granted just because you put the reps in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
What about how far your sight is from your riser? Like what kind
I run
of
my
effect?
sight. I run my sight as far as I can off my riser.
And then
Right to the last hole.
Oh yeah.
Right to the last little nub mark on that dovetail.
What's the drawback from going in or out? Is it just torque sensitivity versus accuracy?
Yeah, that's what I think. I think, like, obviously the closer your sight is to your riser, the more forgiving it's going to be. If you run a sight close to your riser, you're going to have a lot more ability to shoot further on your dial.
Mm-hmm.
But I find with myself, I just really prefer for like accuracy is better when it's further away.
Do you think, and I'd wondered that too, of like, do you think that it's just perceived forgiveness, or do you feel like, because I kind of like I used to have on my last bow, my sight was fairly far out. I kind of like seeing, because I would automatically notice if I was torquing the bow, right?
Yeah.
Like it's rare, but in hunting situations, I would see that if my sight was farther out versus now where my sight is like slammed up against my riser. I don't really notice it, so I don't really get into my head, but I kind of sometimes I wish that I could see if I was torquing, and I would see that in my scope immediately because that's what you're focusing on, right?
Yeah, well, you're going to see, like, if you take your riser, if you have a dovetail and you move it all the way out, it's really hard to hold that pin steady. If you move it in, it's a lot easier. It's like holding, it's like taping a toothpick at the end of a 6-foot pole and holding it out in front of you. It's going to be really hard to hold that steady, but if you spun it around so that toothpick was in front of you, it's going to be really easy to hold steady, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I started running it further apart because I was always just taught you're going to get better, you're going to get more accurate if that thing's further away, because it's going to force you to hold your bow steady. Now, when I put my riser all the way into, my scope all the way into my riser, and I hold a bow, I'm like, holy Christ, this thing just is like locked. It doesn't move off the target. It is like, I don't even have like a wall, like a figure eight. It's just like dead. So
it's funny because like even with like guys who shot pistol, that's why you want that big slide, those 2 points between your rear sight and your front sight. The longer they are, the more accurate that handgun tends to be. It's the same principle, right? You're going to see if you're torquing if you're not 100% on. Yeah. Same thing with a bow.
And that's where torque tuning is really valuable. And like now a lot of these integrated rests are like a hip, they're the trend, right? But the problem with those integrated rests when they click to your dovetail is you lose the ability to torque tune your bow. And if you want to build a like super forgiving bow, you have to torque tune. Like you wouldn't believe how much torque tuning helps, especially if you're like shooting in the wind or shooting in high stress situations, uphill, downhill. Torque tuning helps a lot. I haven't torque tuned a bow probably since that PSE Omen I was shooting, and I was shooting, it had a really wicked brace height on it. Lately I've been shooting like, like that Matthews bow had almost a 7-inch brace height. So these are really super forgiving bows already. So I didn't feel I needed it. But, I also am very confident in my form, right? In my grip.
Yeah.
So, and that's why shooting at paper tells you a lot too. And like line tuning, group tuning. That's why I pay a lot of attention to tuning. Like paper tuning for me has always just been a start, right? I paper tune a bow when I first get it. And then I don't do it again until I change the strings. That's it. Or I change an arrow or something.
At what point do you think about switching out? Like this is something that I've done in the past too, where like, we have all these nice grips and they're the rubberized rounded handles. At what point would you think that, hey, I'm starting to torque the bow. I can't figure out why. At what point do you rip the grip off and you just run like side scales?
Oh man, like I used to shoot all the old, like I started shooting Hoyt and I shot the RX2, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
The second of that series. And I used to rip the handles right off. Like they're just a rubber side. You had two screws on each side and you had the little rubber on there. I ripped it right off because it was rounded. I don't like a rounded grip. I like it square so I can really feel that riser digging into my lifeline. And then I really get, but like it all comes down to your shot process too, I think. So my shot process for me is I grab my bow, knock an arrow, put my release on, and then the next thing that happens is my two fingers get pulled around my string and I get my grip set. And my grip does not move at all. My grip doesn't move. I'll hold my string with my release already clicked on my bow. I'll hold my keep my two fingers on the string around one upper and one lower around the arrow. And my grip hand will not move. It'll stay there. Doesn't matter how long if I'm in a position where I think I'm going to draw back this bow, my grip hand will not change. It will stay there. And I don't even grip the bow. I'm just putting downward pressure or outward pressure on it just to hold it. And it's always worked for me, right? And that's how I built the shot process around. But for me, two of the most important aspects of archery is where you come into contact with the bow. It's your anchor, consistent anchor, all the time, be in the exact same spot, and your grip hand, making sure you're not torquing that riser at all, right? So it was always just like beat into me too.
Yeah, I found that too, where especially when we're getting close to season, I would even shave my beard just so I knew for a fact that I wasn't putting a ton of pressure on my string because I was just paranoid about it, right? Like you're starting out your season and you're already building bad habits of getting really, really tucked into the string and not tipping your nose and having a lot of contact, and that would wreak havoc on me where I just wasn't focusing on that. Like it just not even just because I have facial hair, right? I didn't realize you don't feel how much you're contacting the string versus, it should be very, very light. Like it should be just barely there. It shouldn't be a ton of contact. And then same thing with grip. If you feel like you have uncontrollable factors where your palm is rolling or you're slipping, that was one thing. That's why I pulled mine off because I drew back on a bull elk. It's pissing down rain, and my grip as I drew back on a bull at 30 yards, I could feel my hand moving on my grip.
Yeah.
And it's just like as soon as you feel that, you're like, oh my God, I can't let off. So I'm moving my hand on my bow as I'm drawing back on a bull, bugling. Like this is the worst, right?
Yeah, never ideal. I mean, so in terms of face pressure, that's why it's important not to I'm not a big fan of high let off bows. I like them firm because you have forgivability if you have a low let off bow and you have to lean around a tree. Say you're on a hunt and the bear's stalking in. We'll use bears because it's bear season soon. And you're leaning around a tree, you know what I mean? Like, and you're leaning with your face.
Yeah.
You're inevitably gonna push your face into that string, right? And if you're running like a 90 or 95% let off bow, that string's gonna move. Everything's gonna be off, right? And you're already off because of just the angle of the shot you're gonna make. So you don't need any extra variance in the picture between like that line between your peep and your pin.
What does that look like in a press? Like an 85 or
a lot
let off. Yeah, you can take the string and pull it apart and move it. It's wild for guys who don't know that.
That's a good I should do a little video of that.
Yeah, because it's extreme. Like
it is.
You can move it. You don't realize how much that little bit of extra weight tensions, because like I know like when you have it drawn back on the draw board, you could like pull your peep out if you don't have it tied in.
Yeah, and I started noticing that with D-loop size because there was this big fad where everyone's like, "You need a small D-loop size. You need a small D-loop size." And this was like, oh man, before COVID, right? And everyone's like on this small D-loop train. And I started seeing guys that are running handhelds, and they go to, you click on your D-loop, and all of a sudden you come to full draw, and now you're bringing it to your face, and your hand is at a inverted 45-degree angle.
Yeah.
You can see that string just like it moves instantly because of the low let off on that bow. And then that's when I was like, man, I need to, where can I pick up this plate? And that's when I started running like a longer, 3/4 inch to 7/8 D loop, depending on, D loop material, which is like, I'll run a 3/4 now for like, if I'm running BC23 Spectra, which I usually do, it's like 3/4, a little over 3/4. If I'm using number 24, 7/8.
And it's indestructible.
Yeah, 23 is amazing. It's expensive as all hell, but it's worth it.
Yeah, I think so too. Just for the reassurance that you're not going to be continually fixing it, which is another element that you could be changing all the time.
I would safely say you get 5 times the shot life out of BC23 Spectra.
Yeah, because I know for me, like whenever I have just run of the mill, when I buy a bow and they're just setting it up, that's the first thing I take off because it'll start fraying. Like I'll have where I'm halfway through the season and I'll start seeing that fraying start. And like other people's bows, I see it and they leave it and it gets to the point where like it's not even safe to shoot. Like I changed when I sent you that picture. That was the wildest shit I've ever seen. We're talking like 2 threads.
I know.
Crazy.
And like I've seen some people bring me their bows, and these are like bows they buy from Cabela's, and they have this like nylon. It's not even D-loop material. It's not even BCY anything. It's just this nylon braided like horsehair D-loop, and it's massive. And like you look at the knots, and the knots are huge. And the only reason the knots are holding on is because they melted the tube. They melted the poly together in the knot. Like that's the only reason. And like if you try to tie BC like number 23. Man, it is so nice to tie. It fits in there so nice. It squeezes nice. Now, what I usually do is I'll take an X knock when I'm tying my D loop. So I'll tie my D loop, and I don't like reefing on the string with pliers, right? Because knots are made to tighten to themselves for the most part, right? Like when you tie a knot, any knot, like any fisherman or Boy Scout knows, and when you tie a knot, most knots are meant to tighten to themselves. So what I'll do is like I'll take a knock, like an X knock, and I'll clip it on the outside again. And as I'm stretching that material out, I'll just like wiggle back and forth with that knock just to make sure, like, you know what I'm talking, right? Like the knot part. Make sure it's nice and tight and close. It's not spread open.
Yeah, so it's not, there isn't a bunch of space. You're trying to push it closer together so then it can tighten further on itself.
Yeah, on itself, exactly. Yeah,
exactly.
That's the way I like to do it.
How much extra cutoff do you give yourself on that Spectra?
Well, I've run enough for myself now that I'm pretty close, so I'm only cutting about 1/2 inch off. And I don't like to pre-cut mine because I like to use the pliers and pull the first knot.
Yeah.
And I don't use any of that material because when you pull on that knot, you're damaging that material. And I cut that off. But what I do is I'll take my razor blade and I'll hold my razor blade to the D-loop side, and then I'll use the lighter. So the razor blade, make sure you're putting blade up. The razor blade is between the D-loop and the flame. That way the razor blade will get a little hot, but you're not going to burn or melt your D-loop.
Oh yeah, because that Spectra, it kind of melts weird. You have to make sure.
You have to burn it. You have to burn it hotter, right, to melt it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I found that same thing.
Yeah, definitely. You got to, and you don't want to burn your D loop after going through all that work. No. You got to cut it off before you do it.
Yeah.
Another thing I remember when I first started to like tinker with my own bows and all this stuff. I remember I'd tie D-loops and I'd get like 2 pulls in and like the D-loop would let go and I'd just like punch myself in the face. Fucking hilarious.
It's crazy because like people don't tie their own D-loops.
Well, like everybody should. If you're an archer, you should learn how to tie your own D-loop.
Yeah, you should.
It's like playing hockey and not tying your own skates.
Yeah.
Or taping your own hockey stick. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just like you should be able to tie your own D loop.
Yeah, because if something goes wrong, and have a repair kit.
Yeah, oh,
Have
definitely in your
something.
back.
Yeah.
Dude, I've ripped a D loop. I don't know how, but I've ripped a D loop off my bow in the bush. But I'm always hanging my bow on like real bad, like really shitty spots where I probably shouldn't. I'm like, fuck,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna hang my bow up on this tree. A lot of little things to catch it on. I grab it and I rip it off, and or
Another
I'm
good reason for
crawling on
having
it.
tied in knock points, not just one.
Yeah, I like two knock points. I just like the squareness that it creates when you're pulling on top and bottom of your bow. Now the target world's a little different. I know guys that are running like Wyatt, he runs a blade rest, and I know some guys don't like to run a top one just because it allows to have pressure. It allows to keep pressure on the between the like force pressure on the blade itself. Because those blades are really, really wobbly depending on what angle they're at that you have them at. So I know guys that will do that just to keep some pressure on them.
Now, what is the knock, like on the knock side of your arrow, what does it tend to do? Does it tend to shoot up or shoot down? Like when you're shooting?
What do you mean?
Like I've heard Dudley talk about knock position when you go to set up your shot, that there's a tendency of the arrow to have constant pressure and up or down on your knock set.
Well, I think only if your knocks or points are too tight on your knock,
Yeah.
right?
So what kind of
If
space
you have
are
the
you
proper
looking for?
space, I like, I like to be able to see some gap in there. Like I want to see the black serving in between there. And like I said, I have it figured out now exactly for the X knocks. I just use a bigger knock, and it's off the the ones that come on those TKOs.
Yeah, those are IP4s.
Yeah, so I'll put one of those on there because I grab those and I throw them away. I just like X knocks better.
Mm-hmm.
Never liked those ones. So I'll put one of those on.
What kind of material are you using? Are you using something softer like a nylon?
Yeah, I use just a nylon. I use something big. Yeah, nothing small like nothing like a 14.14 or like 0.07.
Nothing like a serving. No.
No. So nice and big, right? And then I'll do a double clove hitch on the top, and then wrap it around. Do a double clove hitch on the bottom. Pull it really tight, like as tight as I can.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll burn it off. And I always tie the knot away from me, so that way it's opposite of the knot that I tie on my D loop. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
So both knots are facing the opposite way. Yeah, that's the way I do it. Top and bottom the same.
Have you ever noticed, like, and this is another thing that kept coming up with people listening, was they're wondering if, and I've noticed some changes, but changes with your bow and how it's shooting in cold versus hot temperatures. Have you really noticed anything dramatic?
Well, so this is kind of a cool topic I was talking with Greg Poole about, and wax content in the string is what that's caused. That's what is happening? It's heating up or it's freezing? So yes, to answer your question, yes, like a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, too, and like when everything's cold, it's tighter, right? You're tighter, the bow's tighter. I mean, I remember I had this whitetail walking in, and I ranged it at 40 yards, put my 40 pin right on him, and I shot clear over his back. Right? I swear to God, like I had a good anchor and everything. Had lots of time. No reason for me to shoot over his back, but I had also been sitting in that blind for, man, like 9 hours in the freezing cold, and I was convinced that everything was tight. And that's why I shot over. That arrow was going a little faster.
I always check. Like even the gear I'm going to be wearing, like if it's really cold weather, I always make sure that I'm going to have proper clearance, like on my coat, my arm, like I'm thinking about it, right? That's one thing that I've noticed is the colder it got, I noticed it after a hunt in like severe downpour rain, and then I dried out my setup, and then it kind of it was like 20, 30 degrees, and then it got really cold. That's where I really noticed, like when my string was bad, was as soon as it got cold, I noticed right away I lost a lot of feet per second. I had a ton of fraying, a lot of things going on, and just heating up, cooling it down, and then getting it water soaked. That was another thing that people were wondering, like shooting in heavy rain or like precautions for keeping like I know you and we're pretty abusive to our setups, right? That's why you change your strings every year. But what do you notice as far as hunting in severe rain and what things should people be doing to protect their setups?
Oh man, the biggest thing for me about the rain I find is to just rush shit out.
Yeah.
Like I don't find it affects anything, to be perfectly honest. I just find it just rush shit out. That's the only thing I don't like about shooting in the rain. But like in terms of like strings, man, I'll go through 3 sets of strings a year. So like I just got that new bow. I put new strings on it. I'm gonna shoot that bow probably till the end of bear season. I'm gonna put new strings on. I'm gonna shoot those strings all summer. And then soon as September rolls, or like middle of August or like 2 weeks before, I got put new strings on again. And yeah, it's just dialing in, putting those reps in. But again, it all depends on how much you shoot, right? And if you shoot a lot, I mean, man, there was like 2 weeks there when I was waking up at early in the morning, and I was putting, without like not even joking, like 300 to 400 arrows in every morning in the garage. Just loving that new setup, right? Just like yeah. So I'd be out there, couldn't sleep, just excited, quick coffee and then outside and then shooting and then doing a workout a little later in the day. But just when we were off there for Christmas, I was putting in a lot of reps.
I think for me, I'm always keeping track of that, especially if I'm doing like mule deer stalks or I'm in a really, I'd say, abrasive environment. I think that's something too where guys don't pay attention to that, where if you're using wax, you probably should I take a piece of paper towel, and you don't go hardcore with it, but just rub it up and down the spots that you've waxed, and it's caked full of sand and mud and dirt and shit. So you got to be thinking about, like, if I keep piling it on, I got to clean that shit out if I'm going to reapply some shit to protect my string.
Well, and this is another thing that Greg and I were talking about. So like he never uses wax because for that one instance, like he's down in Arizona and he said the dust kill the strings. So if it gets fuzzy, he'll just take a lighter to it, burn it off.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it makes sense, right? Because you get dirt and shit in there. It's going to, the more wax you keep putting on the string, the more stuff the more of everything it's going to be able to cling to it.
I really noticed that. That's one thing that I started doing, was making sure that, like, if I'm doing a day trip or I do 2 or 3 day stints, that I go through my setup top to bottom, making sure that I'm taking all that dirt off my string, reapplying, and my strings, they last twice as long because of that.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and like I said, I go through a lot of strings, so I'm not a huge waxer to begin with. So I'm just changing strings a lot, but I like new strings, you know what I mean? Like I like them when they're brand new, and then I'll go through my tuning process 3 times a year.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll do the same thing every time I put strings on. I'll go through the same process. And then if something's out or I feel something's out, I might go do some walk back tuning. But I only paper tune when I put the strings on, or right when I put the first set of strings, and then any strings after that. That's the only time I do any paper tuning. And then for broadhead tuning, I just do mostly walk back tuning. But
I was just going to ask you about that. Like, at what point, like when you're doing walk back tuning, at what point do you differentiate there's something serious wrong with the tune of my bow versus those fine, like what, like say if you shoot at 40 yards or 60 yards with your broadheads and you're trying to use a fixed broadhead, at what point would you say, I'm not going to move my rest? Or at what point would you look at, I have a potential tuning problem versus just a small adjustment? What distance, like say like 6 inches to the left, or what do you think?
Are we assuming that your bow has been tuned properly to field points and it's flying good?
Yeah.
Well, see, that's the thing is, like, say you're shooting a perfect bullet, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or say we'll just use a car, because I use this on the other show for an example. So we're driving down the road, right? Everything's good. Tire pressure is great, and all the tires, everything's driving smooth, right? Down the road.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, your car starts pulling to the left because you need a wheel alignment.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you just like move your sight over to your rest, it's just like taking air out of the opposite tire, right? You're masking it. you're masking. What's actually happening there? If your broadhead is tracking, say 6 inches to the left, your arrow is going to be dog tracking as it's flying, right? And the only thing stopping it from not going any further is your vanes.
Yeah.
Because that broadhead, those blades on that broadhead is pulling the front of your arrow. It's pulling the front of your arrow to the point of impact, and your vanes want to go to where they normally go, where the bow's tuned to go. Do you know what I mean? So they want to go where they would just go if you screwed that field point back on. They want to go to that other spot. But your front end is steering you in the opposite. It's going in a different direction. So that's when you have to, you either are going to have to play with your cams or adjust your rest a little tiny bit. But it's important to do that, because if you don't, you start getting in further distances or any wind, and it's going to be like you're asking for trouble.
I had that. That's when it really started like bothering me, because I seen an arrow. I shot at a deer, and my arrow went sideways in high wind, right? Because my arrow wasn't flying like, obviously I was beating the living shit out of my bow, multiple failed stalks, multiple attempts, you're banging it around, and it was elk hunting too. But when you don't have a properly tuned arrow, like your arrow isn't leaving your bow nice and square, any other thing, especially crosswind, it's going to severely affect that. It's going to exacerbate those problems. Like my arrow went completely sideways.
Yeah.
And
because that's where that broadhead wants to go. It's pulling in that direction.
Yeah,
like I said, the only thing stopping it is your vanes. Your vanes are steering that arrow to go where they're supposed to go, right? Because your bow is tuned to go to that place. So that's why it's really important to make sure that your broadhead is close enough, like fairly close to your field point. If you're confident that your bow is tuned with, like, if it's tuned at the beginning, like for a field point.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not sure, you haven't tuned it, then go back to step one. Shoot through paper, right? Shoot through, like, this is something I tell people too, is like people are like, they want to shoot through paper. Okay, well, just to be sure you don't have any torque issues right now, I want you to shoot 5 arrows through paper, and we're going to see what tears you have. If you have the same tear, we're moving on to the next step. If every tear is a little different, or half for one way and the other half for the other way, we got something bigger. We got to solve some torque issues in your hand, right? Because the bow is going to shoot the same every time. It's you that's changing. So then you work on form, right? Grip, anchor, all that stuff.
What distance are you shooting from when you're paper?
Like paper?
Like 7 feet?
Yeah, like, dude, Greg's going to hate me saying this, but I'm more like 5.
Yeah. What's Greg?
He's 7.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's, I hate arguing with that big bugger, but because he's usually right about everything when it comes to archery. But I've just found, and the reason 5 works for me is, I'm going to explain why, is like I'll shoot at all distances, and it always ends up like 5 or 6 yards is the worst tear. Now, if I just get a new bow and I go up and I shoot a perfect bullet hole, I'm like, I'll step back 2 yards, shoot. I'll step forward 2 yards, shoot. I'll try to find a place where there's a bad tear. And if I do, that's where I'm going to paper tune from. But for the most part, it's always like 5, 6 yards. So around there, right? You don't want to go too far back, because then the vanes are just taking over anyway. If you have vanes on your arrow, if you're bare shaft tuning, then I mean,
that's one thing I've noticed. Once you have a really clean arrow, clean release on your arrow, where it just is laser beaming, nice trajectory, you really notice when it's kicking. That's like when you see a bow where it's out of tune. I'll see other people's setups sometimes where I'm watching their arrow, and you think there's some sort of torque going on, potentially, obviously, but you see that arrow flying weird, whether that's spine or not. But I really notice it now, like getting to the point where my broadheads are 100% on, and then seeing a bow out of tune. So that's something to maybe watch for too, is just if you see something wonky with your arrow flight, maybe go and shoot paper just to confirm.
Yeah, and a way you can always tell is like if you go down and pull your arrows, say you shoot 3 arrows or you shoot 5 arrows. If you're new to shooting, I recommend shooting 3 arrows and go pull them. Shoot three. Don't shoot a
Yeah.
whole bunch. Like I shoot 25 at a time. Don't do that, right?
Yeah.
Give your shoulders a break, give your body a break. But if all those arrows are in the target on a different direction, like a different angle, you have some torque problems.
Yeah.
So focus on that. Focus on your grip, right? Build the shot process. That's why you go through these things at the beginning, right? Because once everybody gets fixated on like shooting groups or like hitting the bullseye, the longevity of archery, like if you want to become a really good archer, not saying that I'm a really good archer, but I'm just saying if you want to become a really good archer, you have to solve everything that you're doing, because what happens downrange is a result of what you're doing when you're shooting the arrow. So if everything is tight and locked up when you're on you, that you're doing well, what happens downrange, it's going to be a result.
What about at distance with fixed broadheads? Like obviously you have your max range with those, but when you're trying to set up your sight tape and you're versing it off field points, you're obviously going to have to adjust for some drag downrange.
Yeah.
So say you get to 100, are you adjusting your sight tape to be in line with your broadhead? But you're shooting mechanicals too, so there's a little bit of that.
I'll double check so like when I'm tuning in my bow for broadheads, I'll take like the Grim Reapers, and I'll take some 2-part epoxy, mix it together, and I'll take a paper clip.
Yep.
And I'll scoop a little bit of that epoxy up. First thing I do actually is if it's I usually look for like an older broadhead, one that's already like, if the blades are dull, it doesn't really matter. And I'll clean it up good, make sure all the crap's off there, so it's not heavier than it should be. And then I'll take some rubbing alcohol, rub it down good, right, so it's nice and perfectly clean. I'll take 2-part epoxy with a paper clip, and I'll put a little bit of 2-part epoxy in the track, and I'll close it.
Yep.
And I'll do that on all 3 sides. And I'll glue that sucker shut, and I'll wrap a little bit of Scotch tape around it, and I'll let it sit overnight. And then what I do is I'll shoot those broadheads when I'm doing walkback tuning. I'll shoot those broadheads at 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, just to make sure that they're flying, they're hitting the line. So maybe I should start from the beginning. I make sure I draw a vertical and a horizontal line on a target that looks like a plus sign. And then I'll make sure that those arrows are hitting the line that I'm aiming at with that broadhead at all different distances. Now, if they're not, then what I'll do is a more traditional side of walkback tuning, where I'll just use my 20 pin and I'll try that walkback. So I'll use 20, make sure it's hitting. 30, make sure go to 30 yards, still use my 20 pin, make sure it's hitting the line. Go to 40, still use my 20 pin, make sure it's hitting the line. And then so on and so on. 50, using my 20 pin, making sure it's still hitting the line. 60, using my 20 pin, making sure it's still hitting the line. If those are all good, then I'm good. I'm golden. That's how I do my walkback tuning. So it's more of like a line tuning at the beginning, than a walkback tuning. If something's funky when I'm doing my like walkback line tuning, I call it. It's not really like the traditional walkback tuning. But I just do the same thing, like a line tuning, but I'll go 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 all the way back.
What about like I know like some people, they have limited space to shoot at. What's for you like the minimum distance as far as how far away that you should shoot to know that your broadhead is perfectly in line and tuned?
Oh man, I think if you're going to be comfortable shooting at that distance, you better practice at that distance, or 10 yards or 20 yards further than that distance all the time.
Yeah. That's
so
one
if
thing.
You're comfortable shooting at 50, practice with your broadheads at 60 all the time.
Yeah, I agree. Especially too, like, don't shoot in the days you want to. Like those sunshine, rainbows, no wind. You have to shoot that setup with a little bit of wind, especially
Yeah.
crosswind.
Yeah.
Like,
You have to shoot. You have to shoot all the time. Yeah, for sure. I
yeah,
mean,
because
I shot a mule deer a few years ago. It was 92 yards with a fixed blade. And man, that arrow did not hit where I wanted it to hit. It hit further behind, but there was a lot of wind that day.
yeah,
And I just misjudged. I misjudged how much the wind was going to pull that arrow. I mean, it all worked out. I still ended up killing that thing, but I mean, it could have been a lot worse. But that's why it's important to practice in windy situations.
yeah.
I find anyway.
Yeah, because wind helps with a stock. You can get in a little bit closer, and probably that's the best bet is just understanding what that hard stop limit is. I know for me, it can be kind of frustrating. You're not going to be doing anything that productive as far as like form and whatnot, but you do get to know your limits. Like how much sway, how much is a fully setted bow with a full quiver of arrows? How much is that going to be swaying side to side in the wind? And then I know that, okay, I probably should just stalk in a little bit further instead of trying to make a shot at 60 or 70 yards.
Yeah, that's why I've always liked my top cam hitting a little earlier than my bottom because it makes you really pull into that back wall. And with long stabilizer, it really helps. So Brian was telling me this interesting thing that he does. He practices canting his bow deliberately. So his bubble would be like, you know how when you're looking, and depending on the site, but like, you know how your bubble or at any level, the bubble doesn't really sit line to line. There's
No.
space there, right?
Yeah.
Cant your bow so the bubble's hitting to the line and then shoot an arrow. See how much that impacts your arrow on the target.
It's funny because we do this exact thing, or like Pat and I, when we were setting up people's rifles and we were trying to show downrange the effects. Because if they had a problem with their shot process and they weren't properly leveling their rifle scope, they have levels for that, an anti-cant level.
Yeah.
If they didn't, we'd say, okay, we're going to show you. Look downrange of the spotter at 1,000 yards. And it's because your turret erector tube you're not perfectly going up or down. You're planing to the right or planing to the left. So we turn to the left, hit left of target, hit plane to the right, hit right of target. And it's pretty intense.
Yeah. Well, Brian told me that's what he practices. So that's one thing I'm going to start practicing this year is just like, again, drawing a vertical line on a target.
Yeah.
Canting my bow. So the bubble is to one way or the other. And then still having my pin on the line. And then shooting and just seeing where that arrow is on the line, how far off the line it is. You know, if I'm at 60 yards, if I'm at 60 yards and it goes 6 inches to the left or right, then I know, hey, I can still put my pin where I want to. But if I've got a 10, 15 kilometer side wind, I know I can get away with holding my pin here if I cant my bow a little bit. Because it's always easier to put your pin where you want to hit than it is trying to hold over left or right, like windage.
It's funny that you say that because I've noticed when humans are aiming, the finer the point, the more accurate you'll be. If you're trying to aim at this big dot, you're not going to be as accurate. You want the most fine-tuned, focused point, and that's exactly like you say. Like when you're putting your pin on an animal, you're going to feel a lot more comfortable holding on the animal.
Yeah.
Than holding off the animal. You're going to feel very scared, right? Like,
yeah. So like that mule deer, I was way up at the front of him, probably even off his front shoulder, like looking at dirt, right?
Yeah.
It's really eerie. And then I think what I did, this is what I think happened. I think I was at full draw and I was like, I'm going to have to shoot this thing. I'm going to have to hold 2 inches in front of this deer. And I think what happened was I just mentally moved it in a bit to his body because I just somewhere along the line at the last second, right before my shot, I just subconsciously moved my bow over. I wasn't comfortable, moved it in like 4 inches and shot back. That's what I think happened.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's really interesting when I was talking to Brian Barney about this, he was telling me that's what he practices. So this year I'm going to work on doing some of that. And then it comes down to just shooting in the wind to understand how much wind, like what wind will have an impact on your setup. That's why it's important to shoot in the wind because like you can cant all left or right, but if you don't understand how much wind is blowing or like how much you have to lean it, it ain't going to do you any good.
Yeah, and then just putting those reps in, dedicating to your arrow setup early on, I think that's a big thing too. Because then
Dude,
you can.
that's one thing I've been struggling with this year, and it's like tuning a bow. If I don't have an arrow to tune, if I don't have the arrows I'm going to shoot this year, there's no point in me tuning this bow.
No, it's pointless.
Yeah, it's pointless. It's absolutely pointless.
You got to do it all
I can
over
build
again.
the bow because I know exactly what knock I'm going to use. But there's no point in me shooting through paper until I figure out exactly what arrow I'm going to use and what broadhead I'm going to use and how much they weigh, right? And what vanes I'm going to use, because that all affects accuracy. That affects your tune.
Yeah, because it really does. Like when you're launching up the arrow, how it's responding and how it's turning up and spinning out that arrow. I've noticed that majorly, especially.
Well, I mean,
like,
arrow length,
Yeah.
arrow, like axis arrows to rips, TKOs, wind drag on the arrow, depending what the arrow's made of,
Yeah.
points, broadheads, all this stuff matters, right?
Yeah, it really does.
So I think this year I'm going to shoot axis arrows just because it's hard to find any rip TKOs, and I'm trying not to order anything from the US. Because fuck them.
What's
Sorry, anybody listening from the US?
What spine are you running? You running 300?
300.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely 300.
Yeah, they're a little bit heavier, but it's fine.
Yeah,
So they
so like
can.
that bow, I'm shooting 75 pounds. I got a 29-inch draw length. So running 150 up front, maybe a little lighter than 150, depending what I use for an insert. If I'm just using those hit-its. But I'm going to probably use for hunting, I'm probably going to use a half out with the Beast Broadhead.
Yep. Are you going to run the titanium ferrule? I think
Probably.
that's what I'm going to do too. Yeah. Titanium ferrule. Yeah. For
Yeah,
sure.
so
2-inch.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. One thing I wanted to ask you too, like what is your ideal situation for like training, shooting down or uphill and checking your system? Like obviously you check third axis, you're checking everything in the press, but in the real world, what should guys be trying to do? Like obviously you got to try and simulate as best as you can the stuff you're going to be seeing out in the field, but if you're hunting in mountain areas and you're going to be shooting down potentially 20 degrees, have you noticed any difference with like broadhead flight, broadheads, or just
big difference? Even broadheads to field points.
Yeah.
So like I'm going on a goat hunt in the middle of August, and like when you're goat hunting with a bow, you're getting above the goat, shooting down onto them, and it's steep.
Yeah.
So this year I'm going to be practicing basically standing on my roof, putting a target right below me, and shooting down on it, and just to see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Just to see what kind of impact it does. Because like it'll always shoot low, right? Because if you're not, especially, well, I mean, everybody now is should be running a rangefinder that has it's not just line of sight. It's got the HCD mode on it as too. Because what is that? That's angle times line of sight or something like that.
So it's cosine. So basically, it's the degree angle shot versus the max distance line of sight.
Yeah.
But the thing that people don't factor in though is the exacerbated effect that your arrow is not flying in a straight line path. It's parabolic. It has an arc, and it does have a trajectory. So that felt drag, if there's something out of tolerance, and I missed a 200-inch deer because of this. Like I remember this.
When you miss big animals and you miss big shit, you remember stuff and you analyze the shit out of it. When you hit stuff, you're just like, oh, that worked. Maybe it was bullshit luck that it worked, and you never really, the next time you're not that lucky.
But like the shot felt good and it hit low, and that's because exactly like you're saying, the steeper the shot, the more this tendency of the likelihood, I should say, the distance and the calculation, if there's any miscalculation in the drag, because it is parabolic, it does have a trajectory. So the slower your arrow is going, the bigger that effect is going to be. So there's going to be more drag that you're like, we're talking steep. We're not talking like 20, like 10 degrees. We're talking like 30, 40
10
degree
degrees
shots.
I mean, I feel like
at distance,
10,
right?
15 degrees is not a lot. Like you're looking at the ground, that's probably 10, 15 degrees, right? That's not a lot.
Yeah, because you gotta understand that if your rangefinder is telling you it's 50 yards and you're at like 45 degree or more down, that's not 50, that's like 60, 70.
Oh, dude, I
You
know.
know,
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
and understanding how
so
wind
while
factors
we're
in.
on this topic, yeah, and you're affecting and all that, and you have wind, and now all of a sudden you're not shooting something that's coming at you like this straight on. You're shooting something like this. It's going to have a lot more wind, a lot more resistance against wind, right?
Yeah, especially in mountains where it's either coming up a
Yeah,
face. Ideally, that's something that I'm always aware of now. Um, because in long range rifle, that is something you really have to be conscious of. More so with archery, I think, though, because your ideal situation is that you got the thermals right, you put the work in, you got above them, and you're shooting down at them. You're going to have a steep updraft, and that's going to
yeah,
affect your airflight. You need to be factoring that in, right? That's going to cause potentially even more drag or less drag depending on the direction of the wind.
dude. Well, we're on rangefinders, so I've shot that Leopold full draw 5 for like 2 years now. Never played around with any of the like ballistic, like any of the software stuff in it.
Yeah.
Wow, what is just like, hey, you can range something, put your ranger on something, hit the button, and it shows up on your phone where that spot was you just ranged on
Oh yeah.
Onyx.
It's on Onyx now.
Yeah,
Hell yeah.
dude. I started playing with that. I was like, this is the coolest freaking thing ever. What was I doing? Because it's not like I haven't had Onyx for over like since they came to Canada, and I started playing around with that, and even like it'll show you if you're gonna hit anything now. Like I started putting all that stuff into it,
Yeah,
like
your
air
max ordnance.
oh my God, is that thing ever cool? So like if there's a branch in the way,
Yeah.
the little light will flash.
It's
But like just the ability, so like just say you're on a bear hunt, right?
yeah.
April 1st, I'm on a bear hunt and I see this bear, it's 80 yards from me, right? And then I'm like, okay, I gotta, or just say it's 200 yards. 200 yards is probably more reasonable, like more realistic. So 80 yards, so if I range it, I'm gonna have that waypoint wherever I ranged it. It's gonna show me on my phone exactly where it was when I ranged it. So now if I have to duck down or like circle around it or anything, you know what it's like on the side hill or in like that thick pine shit, or even like the aldery stuff, trying to remember where the hell it was when you were like where the animal was. This is really good for like when you're like stalking on or like mule deer. Because like how many times have you been like moving in on a mule deer and you're like, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? And you put your head up.
Yep.
And then it's looking right at you and you're like, oh my God. And then it blows.
Yeah. That's
right?
the number one thing that I was thinking of. As soon as you said it drops a pin, I'd be like, okay, I'm going to go here. I'll put that pin there. I'm going to go to that bush and then I'm going to go over there. And
now
then,
you're looking at your phone and you're walking being like, okay, he's 25.
I'm close.
I'm close.
Yeah. Time to
Coolest
not
thing
peek.
ever. Or
Just
if you
look for
hit
the
an
tops.
animal, if you hit an animal, range it, right?
And they're running.
And then
Pin,
they run
pin.
away. Yeah. And then now now you just put track me on your phone. So I hit that animal and now I got the track me on. I go to where it was where I hit it. I put track me on. Okay. And now I start walking following the blood trail. Now I'm looking down at my phone and it shows me exact trail. And now I have a topo view of like now I'm looking like, well, it would make more sense for it to go up here rather than down here. Right. And like, super cool. Really good for like rifle hunting, I think, because like if you're shooting cross drainage, like 400 yards, like when I went hunting with Stuckless 2 years ago, he was shooting 600 yards across the valley. I was like, when do you hit a fucking animal there? It's going to take us half a day to get there. But with that rangefinder, you could just click it, get over there and be like, oh, we're 100 yards away. It was right there when we hit it. I think that's where it would be really handy.
Yeah, because once you get down there and there's willows up to your head and you can't see where you're supposed to be headed
you have no idea where that thing was when you hit it.
Yeah, unless you run a spotter across the drainage, and that's not always something that you can do if you're by yourself, especially. That's where I think this would really shine is you make another shot across a basin, or say you're in a big drainage, you hit an arrow, you put an arrow into an elk, and you see them take off across this big opening, you can start putting some waypoints down. So when you
Yeah.
get down there, you actually know where you're at, right? Like you say, like you can see that pin drop all over there,
Yeah.
and
And
you
knowing
can
where
follow
the
it.
animal was standing, when you hit him exactly. I mean, when you're in archery, most of the time it's so close anyway, you have a good idea.
Yeah,
But for like rifle hunting and stuff, like something a little further away, I think it'd be really handy. And even like that's where I was thinking, like if you could quickly range it, put a pin on your phone, and then make your stock plan, looking at your phone, being like, okay, he was right there, right? Or if he's bedded down, because like, man, like
yep,
when you're walking in and he's bedded down, like nothing looks the same. Like, where is he? Where is he? And I've done it so
yeah,
many
you
times where
get
I'm like,
busted.
yeah, like where is he? And put my head up, and all of a sudden I turn around and he's looking right at me. Fuck.
Yeah, that's the number one like
Yeah.
danger spot of getting busted on, especially mule deer. You coming over the top, you can't peek. You gotta do everything in your power to not peek, and you just see those horn
Yeah.
tips. You gotta find those horn tips before they smell you or they see you.
Oh
And
yeah.
if you have anything like a picture, a waypoint, anything like that, that's really gonna improve
Yeah.
your odds of
So
getting them.
that I started messing around with that. That is super cool. Super cool technology. And I've had that rangefinder now for 2 years and I feel like an idiot for not using it. But yeah,
It's
definitely.
funny too. I bet once you put in a couple profiles, seeing the difference, and this is why I went away from really ultra heavy arrows like FMJs, um, where I was running like a 531 or 532 grain arrow. I was shooting it in my turbo. It was still going 285 feet per second, like crazy
Yeah.
fast.
Yeah.
But you really see that max ordnance, that trajectory when you put it. I bet you when you put in your rangefinder, if you were to go in the bush, like where there's lots of limbs and shit hanging over, I missed on a bear because I shot him at 50 yards and you try your best, but you don't know for sure like how much you have to worry about limbs overhanging, right? So
Yeah.
having that optimized setup of, in that more middle of the ground weight for your arrow, you're going to probably have less trajectory, like max ordnance. The height of the arch will be less, and you're going to have to worry less about overhang.
Yeah. This is that exact same thing happened when you said on a bear. It happened to me exactly on a bear. I was on a bear hunt. Bear comes in
Yeah,
and I knew there was a limb above where the clearing was for me to shoot. I thought I had enough
me
clearance.
too.
I just give him a haircut on the top of the back. I look up and that branch is moving. Now,
Yeah,
if I would have had that in my rangefinder, I would have went to my knees
yeah,
and
same.
shot, and he would
Yeah,
have been dead.
yeah, same thing. Like exactly the same.
Yes.
Bear was coming in. I was calling elk. I had this nice bear coming in. He stood up. I could have shot him right in the chest. 50 yards, and you don't know. That's a big positive having a rangefinder like that, and just a
Yeah.
faster shooting bow. Like, or I shouldn't say
Flat.
faster, but just flatter, just
Yeah.
optimized, right? You still have the hitting power because being in the 450, 460, 470, but you're still flat enough that you can shoot through little pockets and windows. That's something that I really had favored. I was in the ultra heavy for a long time.
Yeah.
That's something to look at, right? Like if you pick up one of these rangefinders,
Yeah.
you're going to see that like 50 yards. I started looking at that. I'm like, oh, so my max ordnance, my big arch, it's way too high for the type of hunting I'm doing.
Yeah. I never liked that. I never liked high FSC. I dabbled in it and I was like, no, I'm going to a flat flying arrow. Everyone's like, oh, impact, impact, and like impact hit. And like, what about velocity? Like, velocity plays a big thing too. Like, that thing, if something hits you fast enough, it's going to go
Yeah.
through you.
Well, and especially if you have enough mass, like you're at 450, 460, you got enough to get in
Oh,
there.
yeah.
You're shooting
Yeah.
70 plus pounds. You know,
Oh, dude, I've had pass through on buffalo.
that's
You know what I
some
mean?
serious mass, man. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
And like
same moose, same
elk,
thing. Yeah.
moose, all that.
Moose,
Like,
all that. Yeah.
moose, yeah. Like, if you're getting through that, then you're getting through it. Right. And that's not
Yeah.
with a super, I mean, if you wanted to, you could go up to an 80-pound bow, go to like a 250 arrow and put a little bit more weight on the front of your arrow, and you're still going to get like crazy speed. So, but like that's what everyone's chasing now. But like look at these strings coming out, like cam, like look at cam design. like everyone's chasing speed, right? Like all these
Is
bows
is
are
that the
super
trend
fast.
now? You think it's all going away from comfort to speed to performance again?
I think it's going well when you make anything light, it's not going to be as comfortable, right? I
Yeah.
think everyone's going to speed and tunability.
Yeah.
Like I think everyone's going all these bow manufacturers are going for what's the most speed I can get out of this bow, the lightest it can be, and the easier like the most tunable, most user friendly it is. That's what I think.
Have you shot all the new stuff?
No, I shot that. Well, I mean the Bowtex obviously I shot. That's what I'm shooting now. I shot the new lift
What's the Valley like for you
on
on the lift, the new one?
I mean, it's a little different than the Phase 4, but not much. I mean,
Yeah.
the Matthews is a really smooth bow, so
It didn't bother me. I heard a lot of people talking about that. I didn't find that was a big deal because well, I shot a turbo for years and I'm holding like 22 pounds. Like,
yeah, I know. That's what I mean. And it's funny because like I started messing around with target bows and like I had
that's what it's all about.
it's all about like low
Yeah.
let off, and I had that thing set up to like the lowest let off you can have, and like I was like, oh my God, like holding that thing, that 60-pound bow at full draw felt like you're holding a 90-pound bow at like
Yeah.
60% let off. Like it took a little bit to get used to.
But it
So
definitely shows you if you're not, if you're slouching, if your form isn't good posture. That's what I liked about it. It let me know like if I slouched, if I compress my shoulder, it's one to take off. Like I notice it
yeah.
right away.
Well, I mean, and the cams are different too, right? So they don't
Yeah.
you when you're shooting the target bow, you want it to be reactive, right? You don't want it to
Yeah.
have a big. You don't want to be comfortable on a
Pause.
back wall. Yeah.
No, you want to be in the
Yeah.
shot and then it's
Yeah,
leaving right
exactly.
away.
So, and I mean, like, if you're gonna do anything, you gotta like, in terms of archery, the target stuff is like it's precise, right? Like bow
Yeah.
hunting is a lot about long draws and like
Forgiveness and
comfortability and stuff
and
like that. But like,
yeah.
obviously, the hunting bows have come a long way where they're making more of this stuff, so they're more accurate, more towards like with adjustable let offs and all this stuff, and like 4-track systems, and like, well, that's more tunability, but like yeah, they're just making bows more like target bows, and they're making the target bows more comfortable like hunting bows. So it's come a long way. Like fuck, it's come a long way in like last since before COVID even. It's come a long way.
Yeah.
Like if
Leaps
yeah.
and bounds, I'd say, like from like 2020, 2019.
Well, I'm looking at these guys and like I think they've maxed out in the engineering department. Like I think that they've
Yeah.
maxed out of where they can do what they can do. Now it's just going to be about like
Finding that
making it
sweet
more
spot.
comfortable,
Yeah.
making it more tunable, better strings, all this stuff. I think what's going to have to happen to get anything um like this major move or this major shift and advancement of archery, it's going to have to be from something that is made not for archery, like outside the archery world,
Yeah.
and then just adapted and brought into the archery world. That's what I think.
Yeah. Some sort of aerospace material for
Yeah.
limbs or something that can,
Yeah, something
that can
completely
rebound.
different. Yeah, that they apply to archery that's not, yeah, it's from the outside and they bring it in.
I agree. Yeah. Because you've seen like some of those have the crazy reflex, like where the grip is way out so you can get longer draw lengths, but then there's handoffs, right? You're gonna have extreme torque, and I think they're just looking for that perfect consumer feeling and report of good enough speed, good enough feel. They're just moving that speed around to try and fine tune that performance in the field of the shot.
Yeah, and I think that's why like those Matthews are so well liked is because like how long that riser is.
Yeah.
And that's why they're so comfortable because like the riser is the same length as the axle to axle on like all the new ones.
Yeah, I shot my friends. It was an 80 pounder and it was nothing.
Yeah, I know.
It was
But
easy
like
going,
look at how
right?
long that riser is, right? If it's
Oh
really
yeah,
short.
beauty.
You ever look at those old bows, like those old PSCs like from the
Yeah.
early 90s? This is before I started shooting. But like the riser's like
Yeah.
18 inches. And like it's all like
Yeah.
you even go pull like a PSC, right? With a short riser and like just the
Yeah.
the shape of it, it's not smooth like the Matthews is.
Yeah, it just makes it harder to hit in general. Steeper angle
Yeah.
on your string, it's less comfortable. Your anchor is all wonky. Yeah. Do you notice a trend of just risers in general? They're just getting longer? Is that what everyone's
Uh,
going for? Or is there
no,
still
well,
like
I mean, I don't know. Like you look at, I'm trying to picture the AX2 that Hoyt just came out with.
that went a little shorter, I thought.
Yeah, I
I
don't
thought that
think
was
so. I think
32.
like, yeah,
I think it's 32. The last
I
one was
think it all
33,
depends, but
wasn't it?
then it comes into like how much money and how much development that like Hoyt just totally revamped their whole cam system, and that's why their bows are so they they're a lot more smooth now, right? And it helps too. Like I remember when Bose it went away from a split limb or a single
Yeah.
limb to a split limb.
Yeah.
Like how much did that change? And it's like you
Big
get some
time.
you get some companies like APA, they still haven't moved, but like just the how much more comfortable those bows are and like how the feel is of shooting a split limb bow compared to, like shoot an APA now, like even a new bow with a new technology. Yeah, they're fast, but
I'd actually have a friend that went from a 10 plus year old APA to a brand new lift. The
really,
brand new one, yeah. Yeah, the
what did you
lift
think?
X, like it fell from space.
I
Like
know.
it's not even in the realm of comparable at this point. That's where you see the big differences. I don't think, like you say, like we're maxing out. I feel like you're pretty much good with whichever flagship, like whatever the best bows, like all the best manufacturers, they're all durable. They're all pretty smooth feeling on the draw. Some are
Dude, I'm gonna
faster,
send
some are
you a
slower,
picture.
but
Yeah, you're right. I'm gonna send you a picture of this old bow that my cousin has that he started shooting like back in the 80s. And that's who got me into like archery was him. And he was a world, he was provincial champ and like really, really good shooter. Like we went and shot not that long ago and he shot like a 295. Hadn't shot a bow in like 6 years. Maybe not 6 years, but like a long time.
mhm.
Shoots a 295. And I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, I still outshot him, but it's like had to work for it. It's
Yeah,
like,
that's
Jesus
impressive.
Christ, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if you're able to shoot that with those old bows,
Yeah,
that's
well,
saying
he shot
something,
that with
man.
his target bow, which is a Hoyt, and I don't remember which Hoyt it is, but it was his target setup. But he has this old bow, and I got to show you this picture. I can't even explain it. It has like articulating limbs on it, and like 4 pivot points on the limb,
Hmm.
and like yeah, the limb retract. It still has wheels on it, but the limb, oh, it's crazy. I'll send you a picture of it. It's the coolest thing ever.
Well,
Old
man,
school, old school stuff.
yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you one thing, and I think this would be pretty helpful to listeners too. Is there something from last season that it just kind of caught your attention of like you're going to change or improve or something that maybe surprised you during your season?
Uh,
Whitetail included.
yeah. Oh man.
Like you're always dabbling with new bows. That's the thing, right? Like you're always changing
Yeah.
setups. That's why I think it would be kind of useful because it seems like you're perpetually like I always do that too, where every year I look at something that kind of surprised me or some sort of situation, and I'm always thinking about, okay, I got to change this. I got to improve this or
To be
something
honest, like the
surprising.
biggest learning lessons I had from last year was with stuff I did with Wyatt. But like in terms of myself, I don't know, dude. To be honest, like for me, potential lives and dies with preparation.
Hmm.
So it is January, what's the date today? 22nd, 23rd. I haven't stopped shooting my bow. I haven't stopped training. I haven't stopped thinking about hunting, where I'm going, what I'm doing. All these plays in my head, right? I've just basically manifest every situation that I've gone through or that I think I'm going to go through in my head. It's just, yeah, I don't know. It's like you almost want to become like a robot, and that's what I try to like do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? With the training, with like getting up early, working out, right? Putting those reps in, like scouting, and like for the most part, scouting. I've pretty much done all the scouting I need to do. I'm not, other than like the goat hunt this year, all the same areas I'm going to be hunting that I've always hunted in the past. So, I mean, for me, it's not really lessons learned. It's more about like opportunity. And for me, opportunity is just like creating opportunity. And it all comes down to like the work you put in every day.
Yeah.
I'm not really a good hunter. That's why I have to really prepare for it. I have to make sure, right? I gotta, I gotta do all these things. There's some guys that go out and they just get it done. They don't even prep, drive down
Yeah.
the road and they shoot a 6 point that was run across the road. I'm not one of those guys. I'm not hunting in those places either, right? So, I don't like wounding animals. I don't like tracking animals. If I
Yeah.
had my way, every animal would go 5 yards and drop. Obviously, that doesn't happen, but I personally feel that if you can prepare yourself enough for every situation, um, you're just going to limit those. You know what I mean? Like, you're just going to limit
Yeah,
all those factors.
I know exactly what you mean. I shoot through the winter now. I've done that for a few years just to shorten the learning curve of actually being able to stretch my legs out and shoot farther and farther distances so that you're always in it. And just thinking about, like, when my boys were in competitive judo, I used to tell them, like, hey, we got a tournament coming up. These people want to hurt you. Don't train to win, train to dominate. You
Yeah.
got to go above and beyond to the point where the win isn't even, it's an inevitability.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah, exactly.
not things, because things are going to come up that you can't anticipate, you can't plan for. So you need to do that in your mind. You need to be thinking
Yeah.
about, okay, I have weaknesses here. You have to plan to overcome them in such a way that it's not even like, adaptation is part of it, right? So that
Yeah.
you're continually able to see the thing that comes up. We talked about with your last bull you shot this past year. Every year, there's always going to be something that's not quite right.
Yeah.
And you have to be so overwhelmingly prepared training wise.
Yeah. And see, and that's a good point too, right? And like, yeah, I mean, I learned some stuff from last year, but is it anything that really stands out, or is it just like be as prepared as you can and learn to adapt to any situation, right? But that's always been like we've talked about. You and I have been friends for a while now, and like these are things that we've always talked and we've always worked on throughout the year, and these are things I believe you can work on. Like I was talking about, like like adapting Brian's technique of like canting his bow a little bit, shooting windy situations, so you're allowed to leave your pin on. That's something I'm going to work on this year. But I've also already done thousands and thousands of reps in windy situations now, so I understand how much wind impacts my arrow. Right, I've already done all that stuff, and like obviously, every hunting situation is different. Man, you're still gonna blow stalks, right? You're still gonna bump spook elk that you didn't realize there was a cow laying down when you're stalking in, or you didn't realize those does were sitting there, or you should have went around, you should have went down and up instead of under and over, right? Like,
It's
those things
no
are gonna
different.
happen.
Yeah, it's no different than putting the reps in with your bow. You still got to get out there. You still got to learn the things you need to learn. You still
Yeah,
have to make the mistakes.
yeah, and you can learn as much as you want out there. You could be out there every day, and all of a sudden, something could go wrong. But you can't just quit. You got to just adapt, right? You got to just adapt, and like you and I went through both of our elks. Like, man, it was a grind, right? And it was like, man, I had to adapt, and like I didn't quit, just kept adapting, and like trying to figure it out. Okay, like there's got to be a way to get in there. There's got to be a way, and just like knowing that. But having said that, like I don't ever worry about what kind of shape I'm in if I'm going to get tired. I don't worry about like confidence in shooting. I don't worry about any of that stuff, right? Those aspects are already taken care of. I'm dealing with that stuff now because I can control those. Those are the things I can't help. I can't really help where the elk are going to be, or if there's a 6 point even legal bull around for me to shoot. I can't. That's out of my control. But what I can control are the controllables, and I can just work on those. And so that's what I focus on. And I felt ever since I really adapted like the bow hunter mentality and switched to bow only, it was kind of like an eye opener for me. Like when you're rifle hunting, I feel like you'd always get away with a little bit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you bump that mule deer at 50 yards. Well, he stopped at 150. If you're bow hunting, that's out of the question.
Yeah, like same thing with like my son's elk this past year. Like there's been quite a bit of time that's gone on between, like, obviously his first bull he shot, it was pretty easy, right? It was pretty, the stock was there, but it wasn't very technical. This one was a much greater difficulty The wind was way harder to deal with, just even with the rifle. But he was just like, you're not even thinking even close to how I'm thinking. Like when you get into the bow hunter mindset, you're thinking completely different. You have to give 100%. If you don't give 100%, you'll just fail and fail and fail, and then you'll give 100%, and then you'll get successful.
Yeah.
So that's
or you'll
like,
quit.
yeah, or you'll quit. Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing, like putting those reps with your bow, I bet you know exactly what I'm talking about. If that bow, if you, especially because you're always getting new setups, if your bow that you've had for 2 or 3 years doesn't feel like Old Faithful, you got to increase those reps.
Yeah.
It should feel so natural and so automatic that if you don't get to that point before that huge mule deer or huge bulls running in, you have all this extra noise in your head that can't be there. You got to just be thinking about aiming, getting that arrow when it like launched when it needs to. You got all these other external factors. Maybe you're hunting with your kids too. You're managing that, managing noise, smell, all these things. You have to make sure that you get enough reps on that bow that it feels like Old Faithful, like it's automatic.
Yeah, you're comfortable, you're confident in what your abilities are, and being honest with yourself. Like if you don't practice for an 80-yard shot, don't take an 80-yard shot.
Yeah.
There's nothing that says you have to. Practice, stalk in, get a little closer, be patient, maybe it'll come in. Maybe it doesn't, right? We'll just keep pushing along. One thing I found that's really helped my accuracy, dude, is shooting closer. I haven't shot outside in a while since this range came around. So what I do is I'll shoot one hole in the target.
Yeah.
I'll shoot one arrow. I'll shoot another arrow, and I'll shoot another arrow. And this is a little game that Wyatt and I play. Like I do my reps. So basically, there's 4 targets on the big target. So there's 12 total. I shoot 25 arrows, and I'll shoot 2 in each target. Go, and then we start playing this game. So you shoot 3 arrows in the target. Go pull your arrows, and you have to put that arrow in the arrow hole.
And who's got the smallest hole?
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, like you have to put that arrow in that hole. And like, that's helped my accuracy, like at longer distances. Cause you really have to hold your pin steady, really steady to put that arrow back in that arrow hole.
Yeah.
Like it's hard. Like it's never perfect. Not yet. Right. But you're trying. And that's the point. You're really focusing on holding that pin so steady because you got to put it back in an arrow hole. And so we just shoot 3 arrows on the white part of the paper face, pull those 3 arrows, and I'll shoot, Wyatt shoots. I shoot, Wyatt shoots. And it's helped both of our accuracy a lot. And I noticed we were shooting outside the other day, and I noticed it helped me hold my pin steady at longer distances just by really, really buckling down and focusing and holding that pin. Because when you're shooting at a 10 ring or an X on a 3D target, it's like 2 inches. Like a 10 ring's 2 inches, right? It's a lot different shooting at a 2-inch target than a 5 mil target. A lot different.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. That's something that like having previous experience with like precision rifle guys, like competition guys, the best shooters do exactly what you're saying. They'll shoot and they'll be super diligent about and conscious about shooting at closer ranges, like at 100 yards.
Yeah.
And having repeatability. Not only group size, but accuracy. So you have 2 things, two metrics, precision and accuracy. How close are you to the thing you're trying to hit and how much that's deviating and how tight. So your form is how tight. Your tolerance for error is like your vision, how you're perceiving the information during your shot process, because it's a dynamic thing, right? You're moving. So how you're responding to in the shot process itself. Are you kicking off low? Are you hitting low?
Breathing.
You hitting exactly. Breathing.
All these little things come into play, right?
Exactly.
How long you're holding at full draw, and then your eyes you get eye blur, and like all this stuff. And like why I really like this drill is because you could do it at 10 yards. If you have a carport, if you have a basement, you could do it in there. Grab a piece of white paper, shoot 3 arrows, stand at the opposite end of the room or the opposite end of the garage, and try to put that arrow back in the hole that you just pulled it out from. and do that and like hold that pin on there super steady. And like you'll notice being like, holy crap, that's really hard to do. But man, you do it for a bit and it really forces you to like buckle down and like hold steady. And then you really notice like breathing. Like, what's my breathing? Okay, I'm breathing too much. I got to work on my breathing and like all these little things, right? That when you're shooting, when there's a little bit of forgiveness, doesn't matter. All those things like the breathing and stuff, if you're off a little bit, doesn't matter because you got, you get the 10 rings 2 inches. So as long as you're hitting that 10.
Breathing is something that's so critical. I from like a precision and long range rifle, like taking that, what I knew about that, about having a natural respiratory pause and rhythm, I think is important with archery too, because just like, thinking about your volume internally of how your body's moving in and out and your posture is changing, how tense you are, and how if you just let your body do what it naturally does and you shoot within those pauses, those low pauses, and you have that natural rhythm, you're going to have your shot opportunities to be the same, right? Like if you're going high or low, your body is going to respond differently, like muscularly, right? So it doesn't matter as much with archery. Well, no, but it's probably a factor, right? Like making sure you're not holding your breath, because you'll tunnel vision, you'll blur your eyesight, you'll tense up, and you'll induce buck fever or shaking. So just being like, okay, like when I shoot my bow, it's as normal as breathing. I just breathe normal. I don't get flustered. I don't start holding my breath or breathing overly too much in or out, because that's what I see a lot of people holding their breath. They won't realize they're so fixated on aiming. They start blurring their vision. They start holding their breath because they're trying to fight their panic. They're holding low or holding high or whatever the hell they're doing.
And see, that's what I noticed was that quick little pause in breathing.
Yeah, that respiratory pause.
But then if you are not ready for that arrow to be released, it's your downfall.
Yeah.
You can't have any pauses. You have to like slow it down where it's like
just
like
breathe
in
normal.
that little valley, and then and then shoot. Because it'll like if you do it, if you like hold your breath and you're like, oh shit,
you're not on target
like,
yet.
And like you're not ready to shoot, or like you're So anybody that's listening, you want to improve accuracy, you don't need a range to do it. You need a target, a piece of paper, and your bow. Shoot 3 arrows into the white and just try to put that arrow back in that target.
And make it fun. Bring your kid in there if he shoots or he or she shoots their bow. It's funny, like not even knowing that you were doing this. I have a similar game where I have a little dot with an offset, and I know the distance for my arrow and for my kids. He shoots on the right, I shoot on the left. We have a little piece of tape, and the competition is whoever wins, their arrow has to land in that tape every time. That little box. So
now,
you're aiming at a different point, and it's got to hit that spot. It's the same kind of thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. We started doing rounds, like the whole family, me and the kids. So we'll do a full score round inside. So 18 meters inside round. Yeah. It's not going to be very much longer until they're all beating me. I tell you. So Wyatt, he shot his first 300. Now it's on. Like he even said, he's like, it's fucking on. He didn't say fucking, but he's like, it's on now, Dad. It's on. He's like, I know I can do it. I'm going to do it every time. I'm like, dude, the hardest one's the first one, right? Like I can shoot a 300, but I mean, my best is like 300 with 21 X's. And it's not gonna be long. But then like even like Bree, man, she's grouping like, man, she's putting high numbers up there too, like 250, 260, and like just slowly creeping up, right? Like the hardest thing is like they start out and then they're like 150, and then it's like 180, and then it's like 200, and then 210, and 215, 220.
And then you're sweating. You gotta start working real hard.
225, 230, and then like they keep coming up, but you're already at your max. Like I'm at the max, right? Like, and I'm shooting really well right now, like really well. I'm super pumped where I'm shooting, and like Wyatt, it's not gonna be very much. Like Wyatt just turned 13. He's like not even. He's like 1 month into 13. By 14, I don't think I'm gonna be beating him. Like he'll be doing clean 300s.
Yeah, because he's going to get even bigger too, stronger, more
Yeah.
steady.
Well, and just more everything, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, when he's 14, like in another year from now, last year when he first got into the JOP program, he was shooting like a 220. And now he's shooting 300. Next year, this time next year, he'll be 300 clean. And like Bree too, like she's putting those groups. She every once in a while she'll get a flyer, right? She just forgets something in her shot process. And if she gets rattled, it's over. It's game over,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like just if she gets anything in her head, it's over. Forget about it. Like done. And the little guy, man, like he's shooting the same targets, and like man, he's blunking them in the yellow, and I'm like, Jesus, you fucking kids. I have to do something. I don't know, but yeah. So it's fun though.
Oh yeah, it's all part of it.
Yeah, buddy.
Well, Kevin, I feel like that's a good spot to end her off, and obviously for everyone out there that doesn't know, you're running Knock Talk, so go and
Yeah,
check
new
that out. Lots of
podcast,
awesome stuff.
Knock Talk. It's all archery. It is like 50% bow hunting, 50% target archery. So for the bow hunters out there, trying to get them more involved in archery side, because man, it's a lot of fun. Like, and I feel if you would get into target archery, it's going to make you that much of a better shooter. I know it has for myself, and like just even like playing these games, right? Like I said, shoot 3 arrows, try to put it in the same hole, like stuff like that. Don't need to shoot all the time outside. For me, it was always I got to shoot 70. I got to shoot 70 yards in my front yard, right? 70 all the time. But no, it's just yeah. The podcast's been a lot of fun. A lot of returning guests from this show onto that, so there's a lot of carryover. But it's strictly just archery and some bow hunting stuff. So
yeah, you've been rolling. How many episodes do you have now?
So I got what are we on there? 22 or 23.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's going good. So yeah, you're taking over this show. You're going to be doing still archery stuff, obviously, but more of like a mixed bag of Western hunting style, right?
Yeah,
you're going to be doing more rifle talk. I'm not going to talk like knock talk. It's all going to be, we're still the same group of guys. We're still good friends. I'm going to be on this show. Derek, Pete, they're going to be on the other show, and Muck too. Muck's got something cool coming out in the mix too. So Muck's he's I don't know if you knew this. I think you did, but like Muck is like he's like a pistol instructor. He's like a world-class pistol shooter. So one of the other just interesting factoids about Muck.
The man, the myth, the legend.
Oh, I love that guy.
He's just
dude, every time I talk to that guy, it puts a smile on my face. I just love talking to him. He's such a good shit. And yeah, so anyone who wants to tune into that, tune into it. We're working on putting everything under one web page.
Yeah,
so
like
you'll find
umbrella.
all the Knock Talk stuff there. I'm writing a bit of articles on tuning and stuff. We're gonna try to get Derek writing more because he's such a good writer. We'll put some of the articles that he's already written up, and you did a few videos and stuff too. Working on getting all those onto one sort of platform.
Yeah, especially if we can put onto the website because YouTube has some restrictions with that. But a couple of how-to, especially like brass prep, that type of stuff, etc.
Yeah.
And I've written a couple articles for Eastman, so I do have some like articles and stories and tips and tactics for archery elk and late season as well.
Yeah.
Pretty long for them. There's a lot of info in there. We're talking like 2,000 word stories and stuff. So there's gonna be a lot in there. And just for the listeners, I know there's kind of been a little bit of a lag here. Been working with Pete and Ashley from High BC. We got a couple of episodes in queue for long range. We're trying to make it like kind of like the elk, kind of an evolution, one after another, different phases of looking at caliber selection, builds, and stuff like that. And then with Ashley and everything he's got going on, he has a different perspective with mountain BC type hunting with chassis and stuff like that. So it's gonna be some really good stuff coming. So.
Yeah, and like I said, I got some stuff on tuning articles I'm going to be putting on there. So you're basically going to be able to find everything from rifle, backpack stuff, and all that stuff. You're going to be able to find it on the webpage. So we're working on that. I don't know if we'll put it on under one YouTube. I think we'll still have different YouTubes, but you'll be able to find all the information on the webpage. So you just go to the webpage and then you'll be able to find everything. It'll just navigate you to different YouTubes just because, it's going to be a little bit difficult with archery stuff and rifle stuff and like all that other BS that is involved now with social media and all that stuff. So but I think you guys are gonna start pumping these out again. But in the meantime, Knock Talk's still rocking, so you guys can get episodes there. Hopefully, all you guys that are subscribed to this channel can head over and subscribe to Knock Talk. And we'll just keep pumping them out, buddy.
Yeah, man. All right.
Okay.
We'll see
Thanks,
you later,
everybody.
guys.
Yep.
Bye.
Friends of NRA is your chance to support our Second Amendment rights and preserve America's hunting traditions. Join Friends of NRA at one of our 600 exciting events nationwide. From games to auctions and exclusive firearms, Friends of NRA events are your chance to support a cause you care about while having a great time with patriots in your community. Whether you're a seasoned shooter, an avid hunter or outdoorsman, or passionate about freedom, there's a place for you within Friends of NRA. Visit friendsofnra.org to find an event near you. Stand up for freedom with the Friends of NRA. Friends of NRA is your chance to support our Second Amendment rights and preserve America's hunting traditions. Join Friends of NRA at one of our 600 exciting events nationwide. From games to auctions and exclusive firearms, Friends of NRA events are your chance to support a cause you care about while having a great time with patriots in your community. Whether you're a seasoned shooter, an avid hunter or outdoorsman, or passionate about freedom, there's a place for you within Friends of NRA. Visit friendsofnra.org to find an event near you. Stand up for freedom with the Friends of NRA.